All right, let's just dive right in. What if the entire story we know about our own past has a huge missing chapter? Today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating theory from our source material, the idea that a single, super advanced civilization once spanned the globe and then vanished, leaving behind these incredible clues that just don't fit with the official story. And it all kicks off with a pretty simple but kind of baffling question. You see, we find this very specific type of building, the step pyramid, popping up in ancient cultures all over the world. Cultures that supposedly had absolutely no contact with each other. So how is that even possible? Okay, so just look at this. On one side, you've got the Pyramid of Djoser in Egypt. On the other, Chichen Itza in Mexico. Both are step pyramids, but they're separated by over 11,000 kilometers. And, the entire Atlantic Ocean. So this is the big question the source material keeps coming back to. Is that just a massive, crazy coincidence?
And it's not a one-off thing. Not at all. We see it again and again. Baxi Chumkrong in Cambodia and Monte dei Cati in Italy. Same basic design, but separated by entire continents and sometimes thousands of years. So here's the kicker. If they didn't all just happen to come up with the same idea independently, then that implies they got the blueprint from somewhere. A shared source of knowledge, deep in our past.
So let's start digging into the first batch of clues here, because this whole mystery goes way beyond just pyramids. There are these ancient structures scattered all over the world that seem, well, impossible for the people who supposedly built them. Check this out, the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio. It's this enormous serpent carved into the earth, and its head lines up perfectly with the summer solstice sunset. Okay, cool, but what's absolutely mind-bending is where it's built. It's right on the rim of an ancient meteorite crater that has this powerful magnetic anomaly. How on earth could an ancient culture, without any modern tech, have known to build it in that one very specific, very significant spot? We tend to think of the Great Pyramid of Giza as this incredibly ancient starting point for massive construction projects. But then you look at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. It dates back to 10,000 BCE. That makes it over 7,000 years older than the pyramids. It just appears, fully formed, at a time when we're told humans were just simple hunter-gatherers. And the scale of this place, it's just staggering. I mean, Göbekli Tepe wasn't some little shrine. It is a massive complex, covering an area some researchers say is half the size of Manhattan. And it wasn't random. The central pillars line up precisely with the star Sirius, which suggests it was a highly sophisticated astronomical observatory. So again, you have to ask, how did hunter-gatherers pull this off? Well, this kind of advanced knowledge of the stars leads to a pretty obvious question. If they could map the heavens with such precision, is it possible they could also map the Earth? And that brings us to some of the most puzzling artifacts in the world. Which brings us to a famously strange artifact, the Piri Reis map. Now, this map was put together by an Ottoman admiral way back in 1513, but, as we're about to see, it seems to show things that no one at that time should have possibly known. According to the theory we're looking at, this map doesn't just show the coast of Antarctica 300 years before it was officially discovered, it shows that coastline without any ice on it. Just to be clear, we only figured out what that ice-free coast looks like in the 1960s using seismic surveys. Piri Reis himself wrote on the map that he copied it from much older source maps, some of which came from the legendary Library of Alexandria. So if there was this sophisticated seafaring global civilization, where did it go? Why did it just disappear? Well, the source material we're digging into here suggests a very dramatic, world-ending explanation. Look, we have hard archaeological proof that cosmic impacts have completely wiped out entire cities in the past. That's not even controversial. But the theory we're talking about suggests an event on a much, much bigger scale, big enough to hit the reset button on civilization for the entire planet. Just think about the story of a great flood that destroys the world. It's not just one story, is it? As you can see here, it's a memory shared by literally hundreds of different cultures all across the globe, from the Americas to Australia. So are these all just separate stories they made up? Or could they be a kind of distorted, collective memory of one single terrifying event? The source points to a really compelling scientific theory that could actually explain this. It's called the Younger Dryas impact theory. And it suggests that around 12,800 years ago, a huge piece of a comet slammed into the massive ice sheet that covered North America. The impact would have instantly vaporized millions of tons of ice, triggering unimaginable floods that could have easily drowned coastal civilizations all around the world. But what if? What if some people actually survived that catastrophe? The theory goes on to suggest that these survivors became teachers, wandering a shattered world and passing on bits and pieces of their lost knowledge to the more primitive hunter-gatherer societies they met along the way.
When you look at it through that lens, all these ancient myths from around the world suddenly start to sound different. Take the story of Quetzalcoatl from Mesoamerica. A civilizer god shows up from across the sea and teaches the local people about architecture, astronomy, and farming. The source material asks us to consider, is that just a story, or is it the memory of a real encounter? And this is where we see a very strange, very physical connection across these vast distances. Look at this weird object. People call it the wise man's handbag. We see it carved on a pillar at Göbekli Tepe 12,000 years ago. Then, thousands of years later, we see it in the hands of Assyrian gods. And then we see it again all the way across the ocean in the art of ancient Mesoamerica. And it's always associated with these figures who bring knowledge.
Of course, this is the biggest question, right? It's the one skeptics always bring up. If this incredible civilization really existed, where's all the evidence? Where are their cities and their tools? Well, the source material offers two really thought-provoking answers. First off, we seriously overestimate how permanent our own civilization is. I mean, if all of humanity just vanished tomorrow, our cities would be crumbling ruins in 1,000 years. After the 12,000 years since this proposed cataclysm, there'd be almost nothing left, except for the biggest, most massive stone structures. Sound familiar? And the second point is maybe even more interesting. Who says their technology had to look anything like ours? We automatically think advanced means steel, plastic, and microchips. But what if they took a completely different path? Imagine a civilization that was highly sophisticated, but based on organic materials, or advanced woodworking, or maybe even sound. They could have been incredibly powerful, but almost invisible to archaeologists today. So after you look at all these different threads, the identical pyramids, the impossible maps, the global myths, and the cataclysm that could tie it all together, you're not left with a neat and tidy conclusion. You're left with a really profound and honestly pretty unsettling question about who we are and where we came from. So we're left to wonder about this radical possibility that the simple, linear story of human progress we learned in school, from cavemen to astronauts, might be completely wrong. That there could be an entire chapter missing, a brilliant, forgotten prequel to our own civilization, whose faint echoes we are only now starting to pick up. Is it possible that our own history is so much older, stranger, and way more magnificent than we have ever been told?